Hi there, Amy Tarleton here from Indivisible. I manage our distributed fundraising program, which means I help groups onboard and make sure that they have what they need to fundraise and spend funds successfully. Today, I'll be talking about fundraising via social media, which is one of the key ways that groups fundraise to meet their needs. In this training video, we'll review overall best practices about fundraising on social media, such as which social media sites to use, how often to post, and how to make sure your posts are successful. Some technical tips like how to shorten your links and get more engagement, and measuring success. How can you know if your posts are performing well? Okay, let's dive in and talk about social media fundraising best practices. First, what social media sites should you be using to fundraise? The simplest answer is whatever social media sites you're already using. You want to go where your followers already are in order to maximize your efforts. If your group has a Facebook page and a Twitter account, use both of those to fundraise. But if you only have a Facebook group and not a page, you can just fundraise there. There's no need to create new social media accounts just to fundraise. Just focus on the social media you're already using as a group. Depending on which social media site you're using, though, you'll want to tailor your fundraising posts a bit differently. Twitter is best used for frequent posts where you can get to the point quickly and with few words. Facebook allows you to use more words than Twitter, though you should still keep it somewhat short. We'll get to that later. And it also works best when you post photos or videos along with the text. Instagram is centered around images, so you'll want to emphasize photos, videos, or graphics when posting. One quick note, although you can and should use your Facebook page to raise funds, you won't be able to use Facebook's fundraising feature and the donate button if you're fundraising through the distributed fundraising program. That's because the donate button feature is only allowed for 501c3 organizations. Now let's talk about how often you should create fundraising posts on your social media pages. There are a few things to consider here. First, how often do you post in general? If you post daily about your group's activities and other updates, you could easily add one fundraising post per week. You should avoid only posting about fundraising and instead should post a balance of general updates, calls to action, and fundraising. Another thing to consider is the timing of your needs and your fundraising campaign. If you have a campaign with a deadline, like a matching funds campaign, you'll want to ask for funds more frequently during that campaign. Or if you have an event coming up that you're fundraising for, you'll want to ask more leading up to it. Remember that you can and should have a donation page link that's easy to find on your social media page, even if you're not making a fundraising post. We'll talk more about how to do that later. Basically, don't be shy about asking for funds when you need them, but try to strike a balance between posts that are asking for funds and your more general updates. Now let's talk about the posts themselves and how you can make sure they'll be successful. The number one thing here is that any fundraising post you make needs to be easy for people to read and engage with. That means it needs to be short. In the email fundraising training, we went over a whole formula for how to write a compelling email. You won't be able to fit all of those elements in a fundraising post. You'll need to be brief and get right to the point. Facebook posts, for example, perform best when the post has 80 characters or less. That's just 1 or 2 sentences. You don't need to count characters, and you might need to go over that amount in order to make your message clear, but the takeaway is you should keep it short. It should also be eye-catching. Use photos, video, and graphics to make people stop scrolling and actually read and engage with the post. On Twitter, posts are retweeted 35% more if they have images. And on Facebook, posts with images are engaged with up to 2.3 times more. And for video, it's an even bigger difference. The photos and videos don't have to be anything fancy. You could use a photo of your group at a rally or a quick 30-second video of a member or leader talking about why they give to your group. Often, making a post that asks a question or invites people to reply can result in more engagement, and therefore more people seeing the post. You can post a question like, why do you give to Indivisible group name? Make sure that your post is clear. Ask people directly to donate, don't be shy. It can also increase engagement if you use quick summaries at the beginning of the post, just a few words that make it clear what the post is, like donations needed or fund our work. Lastly, you should also use a personal tone. Don't use jargon or be too technical. Make sure it sounds like it's coming from a person. For more tips about how to shape your fundraising ask, check out the Fundraising 101 video in this series or the resources at indivisiblehq.org indivisible.com/distributed-fundraising-guides. But remember that you'll need to pare down the message to keep it short. One more thing before we move on to some technical tips. Social media is just that, social. So it's a great way to involve others in your fundraising. You can ask your most committed members to share fundraising posts of their own, talking about why they support your group and why others should too. Make sure they tag your group's page when they post and include the donation page link. Alternatively, you could prepare some sample posts that they could edit or just copy paste onto their page. Make sure you're asking and empowering your group leaders and members to use social media to promote your group and fundraise. Now let's move on to some technical tips. We've already discussed the importance of keeping your posts brief, and you'll also want to make sure that the link to your donation page isn't super long. It will look better visually, allow for character limits, and draw more people to click. There are two main ways you can get shorter URLs. First, you can shorten your URL within ActBlue. When your page is created, the URL will be a bit long with a string of numbers and letters. When you're logged into ActBlue, on the edit page, go to Title Ask URL. There you can change the end of your URL so that it will be secure.actblue.com/donate/ whatever you want. Keep it simple, like your group name or abbreviation. It will have to be totally unique, so you may have to try a few options. You can find more detailed instructions for how to edit the page in ActBlue in our guide at indivisiblehq.org/distributed-fundraising-guides. The second way to shorten your URL to your donation page or any link is to use Bitly. Just head to bit.ly, create a free account, and enter your link to shorten it. It will shorten the link to bit.ly/random numbers and letters, but you can then change those random numbers and letters to whatever you'd like. Again, it will have to be unique, so it may take a few tries. Once you've created these shorter links, you can use them anywhere, in your social media posts and everywhere else that you direct folks to your donation page. Now let's talk about how to make sure your donation page link is always visible for folks visiting your page. I mentioned earlier that this is a good idea. Even if your most recent posts aren't about fundraising, you want people to be able to find a link to your donate page pretty easily. There are a few different ways to achieve this depending on the social media site that you're using. On Facebook, you have a few options. In the About tab, you can list your fundraising page under the spot for your website URL, or in the About or Additional Information sections. But folks will only see that if they specifically look at the About tab. To make sure that they also get your donation page info, if they're just looking at your page's main feed, you may want to pin one of your fundraising posts so it stays at the top of your page. If you're an administrator on your page, you can do this by selecting the three dots in the top right of any post and then select Pin to Top of Page. On Twitter, you can enter your donation page as your website URL or in your page's description at the top, or you can pin one of your tweets with your fundraising page info. On Instagram, links are a bit tricky. They don't become a clickable URL within the post text, so you'll probably want to direct people to your page's bio, the summary information at the top of your page. You can say link in bio in the post itself, and then include the donate page link in that bio section so folks can find it. Or you could include an easy to remember shortened URL in the image of the post itself. In addition to creating posts with engaging content, like we talked about a few minutes ago, there are a few other things you could do to make sure your post performs well. First, anytime anyone comments on one of your posts, make sure that you comment back. This will make your post appear on more people's feeds. And second, if you have permission from donors, you can comment on the post and shout them out, thanking them for their support. Again, this will make your post appear on more people's feeds. Let's talk about how to measure success. How do you know if your social media fundraising is working? First, it's a good idea to use ref codes to track where your donations come from. When you create a ref code, you'll get a unique URL to use as the donate button link in your email, and your ActBlue donation report will show you which donations came from that link. That's the key way to see who donated as a result of your social media posts. You may want to have a different ref code for each social media site you use or for each campaign so that you can be specific with your tracking. Ref codes will help answer the question, were people driven to donate because of these posts? You can find more detailed instructions for how to use ref codes in our ActBlue guide at indivisiblehq.org/distributed-fundraising-guides. You'll also want to look at how well the post performed overall, how many people viewed it, clicked on it, and shared it. For each social media site, you'll be able to see this information if you're an administrator on the page. These different metrics can tell you what types of posts people are responding to the most and what interests them. They can help answer the question, did people find this interesting and engaging? You'll want to look at the ref codes and the metrics from each site in concert. Some posts may have gotten a lot of clicks and likes, but not many donations, and some vice versa. Use this to inform your future posts. I hope this has been a helpful overview of how to get started with social media fundraising. You don't have to do any of this on your own. We've put together a lot of resources to guide you, including sample fundraising posts for social media and more. You can find these guides at indivisiblehq.org/distributed-fundraising-guides. And if you have any questions, you can also feel free to reach out to me to talk anything through. You can reach me at fundraising@indivisible.org. Happy fundraising.